Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the first official video on the Atlantakid channel since we've had the monetization mark. Thank you guys so much for 1,000 subs. And as you guys can see, today we have a very special guest on the channel. I'm proud to introduce, you guys know him from the Atlanta Hawks, the Atlanta Dream, and Fox Sports Hoops. It's the one and only Bob Rathbun. How are you doing today, sir? Thank you so much for making some time for the channel.
My pleasure, Blake. It's good to see you.
And without further ado, I guess we'll jump into a couple questions here. So as most people know, you're the Atlanta Hawks play-by-play TV announcer. We're going to get to more Hawks content in just a little bit if anybody wants to skip later into the video. But I'm going to start out with some questions of why you wanted to get into the journalism broadcasting field and like what interested you in the specific field? Like when you were going into college, what made you want to go into the industry?
Well, Blake, I started long before I got to college. When I was 12 years old, I got a chance to take a tour of a radio station back in my hometown of Salisbury, North Carolina. And the sportscaster of the station happened to show up one day and invited me to help him broadcast baseball games. And at age 12, I got to broadcast a half an inning of a game. It was an American Legion game. And that started for me my entry into the business. By the time I was in high school, I was writing for the newspaper in town. I was working at the radio station. And by the time I was 19, when I was a sophomore in college, I was on the air full time and I went to school full time. So I've been at this ever since, and it's been great fun.
So to follow up on that, what were your first few main gigs that like took you on a timeline from where you started to where you are today? If you want to give a quick breakdown.
Sure. Well, when I started when I was a sophomore, it was doing the sports shows at the station and play-by-play of Salisbury High School and football, basketball, American Legion baseball. And then from there, I branched out into doing more college work and stuff like that. Moved to Norfolk, Virginia, worked there for 12 years, radio and then later TV, calling games and anchoring. And then I went to Detroit to do baseball, the Detroit Tigers on radio, and then moved here to Atlanta in 96 and have been here ever since. Did the Braves for 10 years for our network, and for 25 years have done the Hawks, done a lot of college basketball and football and baseball over the years. Worked for ESPN and CBS and various outlets, and that's pretty much what I do.
So knowing that the industry has changed, given since you got into the field, what advice would you give to people around my age that are looking to do in the same type of work that you do? What would you say to them?
Well, it has changed. It's very different from when I started. If you've got a laptop and a microphone, you can become a sportscaster.
That happens what we were on here.
You can get on the internet and you can have your own show, and there's nothing holding you back. But by the same token, it also means that, a million people can do it. So to get paid to do it, what is going to separate you from the rest of the herd? And that's where the quality comes in. What makes you a voice of, a trusted voice, a resource that you know what you're talking about, that you can tell good stories. And I think if you can do that, then you got a chance to be good at this. But just because you can get on, doesn't mean that you need to be on. The thing about the power of the media is that the person behind the microphone has to be trusted. And there's only one way to build that trust, and that you tell great stories. You're right down the middle. You don't take sides. You tell people's stories and the events of the game in a reportorial fashion rather than an opinion fashion. And that's how you build your own personal credibility. And then you can take that from there. But learning how to be a good storyteller, first and foremost, is number one to making it in this business.
And I know that especially goes into, you said you called the Detroit Tigers games way back, and I'm sure calling basketball nowadays is completely different than calling baseball, because as you know, there's a lot more detail that has to go in between pitches and whatnot, because basketball is a lot more high paced. So getting on to a similar question, have you only televised sports in your career, or have you done other genres of media?
Well, I've done just about everything you could do in this business. I've anchored, I've been a street reporter, when I was starting off in radio, I did news and weather and disc jockey and, everything that you can do. So I've had a little taste of everything. And I think that's benefited me. Um, I think the more different experiences you have behind the microphone makes it a little bit easier for when you do what you want to do when you're a sportscaster. I've always wanted to do this, but I was happy to take on the other jobs because it was great experience. Learning how to write news copy, learning how to read the weather, the stock market report, and have a depth of knowledge as to how to do that. There is the one thing I think about doing sports, Blake, that's different from almost anything else in this business is that if you can do sports and you can do a live event, you can pretty much do anything in this business, particularly covering breaking news. In sports, we don't have a script and breaking news doesn't have a script. So if you can handle the sports, you can certainly handle breaking news. You can handle, an earthquake, hurricane coverage, you name it. So that all has led me to this, but I wouldn't trade in the experiences I've had.
So, given that you've done so many roles, what do you think has made you want to be a basketball play-by-play commentator? I get that you get choices and you got to choose contracts down the line. What made you want to stay in the basketball industry, specifically in the Atlanta Hawks organization, for this long?
Well, I've always been a big fan of basketball. Growing up in North Carolina, you kind of grew up on the Atlantic Coast Conference. Um, Great basketball, and I've been covering it, since I was a junior in high school. Um, and then we also had professional basketball. I don't know if you're familiar with the American Basketball Association, but they merged with the NBA back in the 70s. But we had our team. We had the Carolina Cougars, and it was great, great basketball. The NBA was not nearly as big as it is today. And the rival league, the ABA, came along and really proved to be the NBA's equal in terms of everything except a television contract. If they had had that, they might have surpassed the NBA. It was very popular. So it was great for me because I got to cover them, in Charlotte and Greensboro and Raleigh and Asheville and all the places they played.
Mm-hmm.
And that was my introduction to pro basketball. So I've always been a big basketball fan and have stuck with it and been interested in it ever since. And it's just sort of natural that I would kind of go down that road to be in the NBA as long as I have.
Okay, so transitioning more towards Atlanta Hawks questions now. You work along with some very, very highly touted colleagues. Of course, you work with the human highlight film himself every night on Hawks telecast. And, Steve Holman, the radio announcer, has been with the organization so long. Even people by the names of Mike Conti and Andre Eldridge. What's it like working with all these guys? And what would you say when you guys have your meetings together, if you do? What do you think each of one of you brings to the table differently than the other?
Well, I can only speak for the TV side. Radio kind of goes and does their own thing, but on the TV side, it's a big effort from, excuse me, a lot of people. We have a producer, a director, and graphics people, audio, camera guys. It's a lot of people. It's an army of folks at State Farm Arena to bring these broadcasts to you all at home. So I am just the front man, me and Neek and Kelly this year and Andre in the past. We're just the people that you get to see and listen to, but for every one of us, there's 4 other people doing other jobs. So the one message that I would get out there is that it is a total team effort to bring these games. The guys in tape, the camera operators, the audio engineers, all those people, we couldn't go on the air without any one of them. So it is a collective effort to bring in the games.
And I'm sure it's a lot harder in years like this with the social distancing going on in the truck and the production. And of course, you guys don't travel this year, which I'm sure is a lot different than, years past. So I guess a quick follow-up question to that. What's it like calling games? Let's say they're out in Utah or Oakland area and you're calling from State Farm Arena with, the COVID restrictions going on. How much different has that played into telecast this year?
Well, it's very different from our end. I don't think it's very different from the viewer's end, which is, of course, that's good. We don't want them to notice. But for us back here, calling the games off a monitor is a very different experience. I think we've adjusted pretty well, but there's a lot that you miss. That we don't miss anything at home to speak of, but on the road, we only see what the camera sees. We're seeing the exact same picture that you're seeing at home. We've got a few whistles and bells at our disposal, but not many. Um, when I put my headset on, I can hear the game, the squeak of the sneakers, and if there's any crowd, I can hear that noise and the coaches and the referees, players, etc. But I have no peripheral vision. I can't see the clocks. I can't see the referees, if they're not in camera shot. So you do have to guess a little bit, but that's okay. I hope we're able to bring the story home to the fans.
And the telecast seemed flawless. I mean, I get that, it's going to be
Well,
different
good.
when you're like this, but I,
Thank you.
I, I don't see any difference in the telecast. You guys do a tremendous job and have for years. So a quick follow up to that, as you know, the Braves with Chip Carey, he ended up doing the same coverage with y'all when they went out of town. And, Tom Glavine and Jeff Francourt stayed with them. There were numerous times where there would be a pop up to center field and he'd act like it was a 450-foot moonshot. So
Right.
I'm guessing basketball is a little bit easier when it comes to, there's 10 people on a court in a confined area compared to MLB. I feel for the hockey announcers. They must have a hard time covering from a monitor, especially back when there was the bubble.
Yeah.
Anyway, moving along. I'm sure this question will be a little bit hard to choose, especially because you've covered the Hawks for so long now. I chose a couple of different eras of Hawks basketball that have been mostly in my lifetime, and I wanted to see if you could describe them in any way that's unique to each other. Of course, you have the Josh Smith, Al Horford, Joe Johnson era from the early 2000s, early 2010s. You had the 61 teams in 2014-15. And of course, now we had the rebuild into, a lot of the young talent coming together now. I want to see if you could, I guess, describe each of those eras as its own way and see how they connect.
Well, the Josh Smith era with Josh Childress and the young people that we drafted was a total rebuild, much like we went through the last couple of years here. Um, it it really didn't click until we got well, Joe came aboard, and he's one of the greatest guards in franchise history. But we really didn't make a move until we got Mike Bibby. We needed a veteran to handle the duties of the point guard, and we needed Mike, and he kind of put us over the top. And then the 60 win team just sort of miraculously came together. I don't think anybody had any expectations like that, but the
That was a
chemistry was
fun year.
great. Probably the best chemistry we've ever had. Um, had we stayed healthy, I think we would have gone to the NBA Finals.
I
I
agree.
really do. I don't know if we'd have beaten Golden State, but I think we would have got to the finals.
And to be fair,
And
I believe we split with them that year. So
yeah, I mean, we had a chance, really good. But there was no way that we could beat Cleveland as banged up as we were by the time we got the Eastern Conference Finals. But that was a glorious time. When you win 19 straight games, you go unbeaten an entire month of January, which has never been done before or since. It's pretty special. And it was just a great, fun time to be a Hawks fan. Everybody in town was talking about it. Everybody's watching every game. It's sort of like the Braves back in '91 when they went worst to first. Same type of magic. And
my mom talks about those years all the
yeah,
time.
it was just so much fun. And then these last few years, watching this young group behind Trey and John Collins come together, we're starting to see the benefit of all the hard work of the last couple of years. We just can't get these injuries behind us. Losing Hunter for 2 months is really going to be hard.
And I believe that was news from just today, of the day of the recording. So
Yes.
best prayers to him.
Yeah. So he underwent arthroscopic knee surgery on Monday, the 8th of February, and he's going to be out for a couple of months. It looks like. So that'll hurt. He's playing so well and does so many things for us at both ends of the court that it'll be hard to make up that difference. But we'll probably get Bogdanovich back during that time, so that'll help to give us another shooter and a guy that can, soak up some of those minutes that won't be there with Hunter around. So a fun team to watch. Making their move, getting better, I think, week by week. And if we can get everybody healthy and together at the same time, I think we had a pretty good team.
So it looks like the only one guy that you didn't mention there that is still currently injured at this time is Chris Dunn. We brought him and Rondo in those first couple of days of free agency to back up, the defensive guards, behind Trae and Kevin Huerter. Do you think we'll see him at all this year? And when he does hit the court, what do you think his impact will be?
Well, I sure hope so. That's the plan to get him back. Um, we know Chris from having played against him at various stops. So we're excited about what he can bring. He's a defensive first minded guard. Not only would it be great to bring him off the bench, but it's also going to be great to have him in practice because he'll make Trey better. He'll make Rondo better just by defending them in practice every day. So we haven't had that luxury. I don't know what the timetable is going to be for Chris to come back.
Mhm.
Um, I would think that we'll probably look to after the All Star break at the earliest, just to see where he is. But he's a big part of this team. You know, we needed to get some defensive pressure out of the guard core, and he was a guy that was going to supply a lot of it. So it's crucial we get him back.
And it seems like that's exactly what the Hawks are kind of needing in these couple of games we've had. We're getting better on the rebounding side of the ball, but it looks like when it comes to defensive down late in the game, we're down by 4, down by 2, and they hit the shot that's the nail biter. And it seems like Chris Dunn out there, in place of Trae Young for a possession or two, might be just what the Hawks need. So I guess that you kind of hinted on my question before last about DeAndre Hunter being out and how he was probably, the next breakout star of this year. So I'll finish you up with a couple of questions here regarding free agency. So as you know, the Hawks made a plenterous move, from the shutdown all the way till, the restart around Christmas time by the names of Danilo Gallinari, Rajon Rondo. We hinted on Chris Dunn, Bogey, even trading for Tony Snell, signing Solomon Hill, and, the Clint Capela deal, which seemed like we waited for months and months to get that together, especially with the Hawks not being in the bubble. I remember how many times you guys mentioned on the telecast about getting Scalavissiere at the time and Clint Capela on the court with us. Who do you think of those, if you can choose two of those names, who do you think has made the biggest impact on the team so far?
Well, I think we'd have to say Capella, mainly because he's been available every game and others have not. Um, and with the injuries to Gallinari and Bogdanovich and now Hunter, we're basically the same team we were last year, except for the addition of Clint Capella. And he stabilized our rebounding. He gives us a presence at the rim. He can block shots. He's certainly very good on lobs and things of that nature. So I would have to say that he's provided by far the biggest impact. I mean, he leads the NBA in rebounding. That is a huge asset in our favor that we did not have. So Clint, number one on the list. I think we've seen some growth by the guys who have been here. Hunter certainly at the top of that list. He's so much better than he was last year.
Oh,
So
absolutely.
I would say those two, right away, both external and internal. Everybody else has been dinged up, banged up, missed games. It's sort of hard to give them a grade. I'd have to say incomplete at this time.
Lloyd Pierce, I'm sure, has a different minute chart for every game, depending on, the injuries are coming down at the minute, which hopefully, this team will get healthy enough by April. So I'll finish up with one more question here before I let you go. That's getting back to the broadcasting realm. It's about, as you said, you've been in this game for a very, very long time. And if you could go back in time to when you first started the industry to now, what will you tell yourself? And if you looked back, how would you think you've done?
I think if I look back at the start of my career, I would have put more value on networking. Because I grew up at a time where, you just went out, did your job, um, did it to the best of your abilities, and hoped that somebody would notice and hire you. Um, I've learned that that's admirable, but it is not the best way to go about this. The people that you're in the business with at your age are generally going to rise in the ranks with you the longer you stay in it. The guys who were, just starting off, AD, associate director, associate producer, sort of rise through the ranks and they become game producers and then they become coordinating producers, executive producers, general managers, etc. So I would have done a better job networking, not just keeping up with people, not losing track as the years go by, to stay in touch with people, see how they're doing, how their families are. I would have put much more value on that.
And I want to say thank you so much for your time today. We hope the Hawks are able to, get back into their contending ways soon. Thank you so much for coming on. Enjoy the rest of your night.
Well, thank you, Blake. It's a pleasure being with you, and I appreciate you being a Hawks fan. I like the cap. That's a
I
nice
got a hoodie
touch.
on too. You can't see it, but
Oh, I can see that. Okay, good extra credit for that. So thank you for that, and thanks for being a big fan.
Appreciate it. Have a good night, sir.
Okay, bye.
Bob Rathbun, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you're new to the channel, make sure you subscribe down below. We make new videos all the time, especially now that we're monetized over here. So thank you once again for watching. Peace out. Go A-Town. I'm Blake, and I'm out of here. See you boys next time.